everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching it. Sige po, hello. This is my video lecture for the first lesson of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. So this is in consideration of everyone who are not yet done with the discussion of this lesson, as well as for those who just want to review what is this lesson all about. Okay po, so we will be discussing the first part of the Philippine literary history, specifically the parts before the rebirth of freedom, because it has been discussed on the second part of this video. So nauna yung second part before this. So ayun po, let us start. So for the objectives, just read the objectives because it came from the DepEd most essential learning competencies in the curriculum guide of this subject. So you are to identify the different dimensions, specifically geographic, linguistic, and ethnic dimensions of the Philippine literary history. So we will be starting from the pre-colonial period up until the contemporary period. Next po, we have here the definition for the word literature. So the word literature came from the Latin word litera, which means letter. So just the same with the Filipino term for letters, 'di ba po, when we call letters in Filipino, we call it as letra. So katulad din siya or katunog din siya nung origin word of literature, which is litera. It refers to any written work. So anything that is written, your notes, anything that is written in a notebook, in a blackboard, that is considered as literature. However, it should have superior or lasting artistic merit. So how can we say that something have an artistic merit if it has symbolisms, if it has representations of the current society, the current experiences that we have in our generation today. So if that is what you are writing about, or if a written work is all about that, if meron po siyang symbolisms and representations, then that may be considered as literature. As well as if it has been awarded by different award-giving bodies about literature. So that is literature. Moving on to the periods of the Philippine history, we have um, 11 specific periods, but in this discussion, again, we will be just discussing the first 5 because the second half was already discussed on my other video lecture. So we will be discussing from the pre-colonial period, Spanish period, period of enlightenment, the American regime, and the Japanese period. So this is what we will be discussing in this video lecture. So let us start with the pre-colonial period. On the pre-colonial period, this is the ancient Filipino period. Okay, so we have 5 different literary forms that existed during the pre-colonial period. So we have chant or bulong, we have legends, we have folk tales, and the other 2 will come afterwards pagtapos nating i-discuss ito. So let us start first with the chant. A chant is a short song or phrase that is used in witchcraft or enchantment. They are relating it to witchcraft or enchantment because they believe that those who are using it before, they used it to enchant someone, or they use it to control, they use it to wish someone something, or if they want to get anything that they want, they use chants or bulong. So it can be a phrase that they repeatedly saying, or it can be a short song. So it can be a short form of tune o kaya po melody. They are following that. So yun po yun. Sabi po dito, it is also usually used in agriculture, in healing, and in other rituals. So chant is known to being used by the babaylans. So sino po ba yung mga babaylan? They are acting as the advisors in the tribes. Bakit po? They are the advisor of the datu, which is the head of the tribe. So, yung mga babaylan po, they are the one who conducts the chant. They are the one who front lines the chant. So, yun po yung mga role ng babaylan. Okay po. I have here an example of a chant. So listen very well.
Mekeni mekeni tuk tuk dore mi. 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 Tuk tuk dore mi.
Okay po. So that is a scene from one of the Filipino series entitled Bagani. So kung if you watch it carefully, si Dimples Romana is acting as the babaylan. So she is the one who conducted the chant for healing. So kung nakita nyo naman po, it is a Bagani or a warrior, and then he is heavily wounded, meron po siyang sugat sa tiyan niya, and then siguro nasaksak siya or what, tapos ginamot yon ni Babaylan. So nakita naman na nagsara agad-agad yung sugat. So that is how chants work, or how they believe chants work during the pre-colonial period. Next naman po natin, we have the legends and folktales. So in definition or in description, both are stories about characters. So the focus are the characters. However, one is considered as factual while the other one is a total fiction. So when we say factual, this consists of true stories or true historical stories. So ano po yun? In these two, the legends are factual. When we say factual, the people in the area believe that what the story truly happened during a specific time in that specific area. So, yung legends po, one example of that is ang makulay na buhay ni Bernardo Carpio. So, when you go to Wawa and you ask the locals there, yung mga tao po na matagal nang nakatira doon, they really believe that Bernardo Carpio existed. At doon po siya nakatira sa kanila pong lugar way back then. And they believe that he is the one who really tawag dito, divided or yung nagkontrol na mapaghiwalay po yung dalawang bundok na nagbabanggaan. So, siya yung pumigil na magdikit po yung dalawang bundok. And up until this day, there are some tourist guides that are still continuing the story that they believe that the spirit of Bernardo Carpio still exists sa Wawa Dam. So, naniniwala sila na nandun pa rin siya hanggang ngayon. Pero wala na nga lang siya, yung spirit niya na lang ang naiwan. Well, the other one, of course, the total fiction is the folk tales. So, what is the explanation? Usually, it talks about alamat. Yan po yung mga pinag-uusapan natin when we say folk tales. And sa madaling sabi po, why is it a total fiction? Have you seen a person that turned into a pineapple? Opo, so far naman po siguro wala pa naman po, 'di ba? So I think that is one of the reasons why it is considered as a total fiction, because the stories are impossible to happen in real life. So ano po bang target ng folktales? They are targeting the children to teach them good manners and right conduct. GMRC pala ang folktales. But that is the focus of a folktales. In Filipino, it is known as a kwentong bayan. Okay po, that is folk tales. Next naman po, these are the other two. So we have chants, legends, folk tales. We have epics and folk songs. So what are epics? Ay, wala dito yung definition. So epics, I will just explain it. The epics po are a story about a specific character that have supernatural prowess. When we say prowess, that is just another word for powers. So in epics, if the character is a god, if a character has an ability to fly, an ability to transform, ability to transport from one place to another, that is an example of epic. So meaning to say, the focus of an epic is about the characters. And it is required for the characters to have supernatural powers. That is an epic. Next naman po, in folk songs, of course, this is very different from all the others because this is a song. So it is a form of literature that is also a form of art. Folk songs are usually sung because they want the people who created them want to document the life that they have in the provinces. So, the way that they are living, they want to document it. One example of that is magtanim ay di biro. So, kinukwento nila on how they do their life, on how they do their work on their different places sa Pilipinas. So, yun po yung isang example niyan. And based on the picture that is given, they are doing harana. Ano po, harana is not an example of folk songs. It is an activity. Okay? It is an activity wherein a man shows his love to a woman. That is courtship, harana. So, a serenade, harana, courtship pala is panliligaw. So, serenade, they are serenading the woman that they love or they want to have. So, ngayon, ano po yung kinakanta nila? Kung hindi po yung harana yung kanta, ano po yung tawag dun sa kinakanta nila? What they are singing there sa pangaharana po nila is what we call kundiman. Okay? What is kundiman? When we say kundiman, that is a love song. Okay po, that is a folk song. That is an example of a love song. Okay po, so that is kundiman. Next period po that we have, so we have here another example of a folk song which is Ili-Ili. So you can search it on the internet. I will not play it anymore kasi mahaba po siya. So I suggest to just search it on the internet. Okay po. Next naman, next period that we have here is the Spanish period. For the Spanish period, one advancement or development in terms of literature is they changed the system of writing in the Philippines, especially on the literature. Why? Because during the pre-colonial period, we are known in using baybayin. Okay? Because it is pre-colonial, hindi pa tayo nasasakop. So, the Filipinos during that time are still using baybayin when they are writing. Now, during the Spanish period, they changed that. They influenced the Filipinos that the baybayin is created by the demons. And syempre po, as gullible as they are, the Filipinos believe them. And that's why ginagamit na po nila yung Roman alphabet because hindi na nga nila magamit yung baybayin dahil nga naniniwala na sila na gawa po yun ng mga devil. So, hindi na po sila gumamit ulit nun. And they started using Roman alphabet. And of course, another form of literature during this time are the recreational plays. So, the recreational plays, another term for that are theater plays. We also have drama or dramatization. That is what we call recreational plays. And on this type of plays, of course, the actors are the Filipinos. They are the one who are planning, ano ba yung iaarte po nila. And then the audiences are the Spaniards. And usually, sino po ang audiences? It is the friars who watches the recreational plays. Okay po. Now, I'm gonna discuss 3 specific forms of literature during the Spanish period. And after that, 3 specific recreational plays. So, let us start with corrido. So, corrido is a legendary religious narrative form that usually details the lives of a saint. So, ibig sabihin po, it focuses on retelling or recounting what are the experiences that a saint had when they were living. So, lahat po ng buhay nila, buhay ni San Jose, buhay po ni Mary, lahat po yan ay pag kinuwento or when you find a literary piece that is written na ang focus po is buhay ng santo, that is an example of a corrido. Okay po. Next naman po, we have an awit. An awit is a chivalric poem about a hero. So, when we say chivalric, meaning gentle. So, gentleman, gentlewoman, the people who holds doors for others. That is what we call chivalrous or chivalric. So, if it's a story about chivalry, ibig sabihin po, merong sinisave si hero. And usually, the heroes are saving the damsel in distress or yung princess nila. Usually po, ganun po yung story niya. And one example of an awit is Florante at Laura. So, that is an example of an awit. Next naman po, we have passion. Passion is a narrative poem about the life of Jesus Christ. So it is usually done during Lenten season. What makes Passion different from awit and corrido is that Passion is being sung. Kinakanta po siya. So, hindi po yung awit yung kinakanta ha, it is passion that is being sung during the Lenten season. So, ano po ba yung isa pang term sa passion? It is also known as pabasa. So, if you are familiar with that, you have a grandmother or a mother that likes or that is very devoted to the Roman Catholic religion, you may have encountered a passion or pabasa. So, sabi po dyan, it is a narrative poem about the life of Jesus Christ. So, meaning to say, starting from when He was born, nung nagbinata siya, yung mga napagdaanan niya in being a teacher because Jesus Christ was a teacher. So, lahat po ng yun kinukwento nila sa Passion. They are recounting or retelling the life of Jesus Christ through Passion. So, yun po yun. And Lenten season is also known as Holy Week. So, yun po yung Lenten season that we are talking about. So, I have here an example of Passion. Ipe-play ko siya because it is short lang naman. So, pakinggan po ng mabuti.
Malapit na di natawag na.
Okay po. So, that is an example of a passion. So, usually, I don't know if you are familiar, pero if you are, matatandaan nyo po yung parang ganyang setup na nakalabas lahat ng mga santo and they are singing kung ano po yung mga verses na part ng life of Jesus Christ. So, yun po yung passion. Next naman po, we have the three specific recreational place that existed during the Spanish period. So we have Cenaculo, Moro Moro, and Carrillo. So for Cenaculo, it is the dramatization of the Passion of Christ. So earlier in Passion, we are recounting or we are retelling the life of Jesus Christ. However, dito naman po sa Cenaculo, it is the dramatization, meaning the acting of the sufferings and death of Jesus Christ. So, kung kanina po tungkol sa buhay, buong buhay, mula pagkabata hanggang tumanda po si Jesus Christ, yun po yung kinukwento nila in Passion. Dito naman po sa Cenaculo, they are focusing on one part only. And they are focusing on the sufferings and the death of Jesus Christ. So, later on, I also have a video of Cenaculo, but that is done in a foreign country. Dito po kasi sa Pilipinas, nakasanayan na po natin na ang Cenaculo po ay sa daan ginaganap. So what they are doing in Cenaculo is that they are reenacting kung ano po yung mga napagdaanan ni Jesus Christ. So for example, nagpo-procession po sila ng may daladalang krus. Tapos po yung iba nilalatigo nila yung likod nila. Yung iba naman po very devoted. They are making themselves na ipinapako sa krus. Yung mga ganun po. That is an example of Cenaculo. Next naman po, we have Moro Moro. Coming from the name, it is a drama that depicts the conflict of religions. And kaya nga nang sabi ko, depending on the name, it talks about the conflict of Christianity and the Islam religion. So, very straightforward. Tungkol lang naman po yan doon. The flow of the story is, on the first part, the Islams are winning, nakakawawa po yung mga Christians, and then on the latter part, nananalo po yung mga Christians. Of course, it is the story of the Spaniards. Sila po yung gumawa niyan. Siyempre po, ang mananalo ay yung mga Spaniards or yung mga Christians. And lastly po, we have Carrillo. It is a play that uses shadows as its main spectacle. So, meaning to say, Carrillo does not have a specific topic. It does not have a specific, specific theme or concept, sorry. So, ang focus po ng Carrillo is not on the story, but rather it focuses on the execution. So, paano po ba execution sa Carrillo? It uses shadows. So, meaning to say, it is a shadow play. So, ganun po yung Carillo. Any story that they like, pwede po bang tungkol sa religion? Yes. Kung gusto mo pa rin mag-usap tungkol sa religion, pwede po. Can it be about family? Yes. Can it be about romance? Yes, of course. Pwede po. Because there are no limitations in terms of the topic in Carillo. Basta po shadow play siya, that is Carillo already. Okay po. Next naman po, I will show you the example of cenaculo done in a foreign country or in other countries. Okay po. So, that was cenaculo. One main difference I believe that you can also observe is that cenaculo here in the Philippines is being done outside. It is being done on the roads, on the streets. Pero po dito po sa cenaculo in the foreign countries or other countries, they are doing it in a theater. So, very technical sila pagdating po dyan. So, they are doing it inside a theater compared to us na sa labas po siya ginagawa. Okay, so that is cenaculo. Next naman po, we have the period of enlightenment. The meaning of enlightenment is being able to realize the truth. That is what we are calling enlightenment. And this is the period wherein the Filipinos realize that what the Spaniards are doing is not right. It is abuse to them. So that is the period of enlightenment. In this period, we have three specific key persons, and they are Dr. Jose Rizal, Marcelo H. Del Pilar, and Graciano Lopez Haina. So, in correct order po yan. Baka malito po kayo, ha? So, in the middle, we have Marcelo H. Del Pilar, and on the last one, we have Graciano Lopez Haina. So, they are the key persons during the period of enlightenment. For their writings, I will be just discussing and giving you a short gist of the stories or of the writings that they had. So first, some of the Rizal's writing, we have Noli Me Tangere, El Filibusterismo, and Mi Ultimo Adios. So for Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, you know it already because it has been discussed to you during your junior high school days. So Noli Me Tangere for grade 9 and El Filibusterismo for grade 10. Why is it being discussed in an educational setting? Because it is considered as one of the obra maestras that we have here in the Philippines or in the Philippine literature. Kabilang po sila or kasama sila doon sa mga obra maestra alongside with Florante at Laura and Ibong Adarna. So those are the four obra maestras of Philippine literature. Okay? So I'm just gonna discuss Mi Ultimo Adios. This is one of the writings of Rizal believed to belong to his last writings. So, ibig sabihin po, kasama po ito sa mga pinakahuling na isulat po ni Jose Rizal before he was killed by the firing squad of the Spaniards. Next naman po, we have Del Pilar's writings. He had Pag-ibig sa Tinubuang Lupa, Kaingat Kayo, and Dasalan at Toksohan. So, Pag-ibig sa Tinubuang Lupa is a translation of one of Rizal's writing. It is a translation of El Amor Patrio. So, Rizal is known for writing different literary pieces, especially in a foreign language. So, he is known in writing using Spanish, using French, German. He is very linguistic because he knows how to use those languages. And he has written using those languages. So, what Del Pilar did was to translate it into Filipino or Tagalog during this time. So, sabi po dyan, Pag-ibig sa Tinubuang Lupa is a translation. Kaingat Kayo, it is his message or Del Pilar's message to the Filipinos who are revolting against the Spaniards. So it is his way of reminding them that even though you are fighting for our country, take care of yourselves always. Ganun po. Soft guy itong si Del Pilar. Okay po, next po natin, dasalan at tuksohan. So coming from its name, dasalan meaning the church and then tuksohan meaning mockery. So in this story or in this writing, Del Pilar is mocking the church. So he is identifying that there is a problem at the church, pero he is mocking it. Okay po. Next naman po, we have Haina's writing. So, if Del Pilar is targeting the church, Haina naman is targeting one specific friar. So, when we say friar, we are talking about a father or one of the priests in the church. So now, ang tinarget niya po is si Botod. Kaya po yan, Fray Botod. Ibig sabihin po, Friar Botod. He is targeting that specific friar for injustice and for corruption. Okay po. Next naman, and last, we have sa mga Pilipino. So this is a writing of Haina intended for his kababayans or for his co-Filipinos to have hope, to believe that they will be able to be free from the Spaniards. So if si Del Pilar yung kaingat kayo para sa mga lumalaban, kay Haina naman he is targeting or he is consoling, comforting the Filipinos to stay hopeful into regaining their freedom. So that is the writings of Rizal, Del Pilar, and Haina. Next naman po, I want to give emphasis to one of Del Pilar's writing. So, Pag-ibig sa Tinubuang Lupa. It is written by Del Pilar approximately. So, when you see a sign like that before a date, ibig sabihin po that is approximately. So, it is written approximately on 1886. So, saan po nakabase yung translation po ni Del Pilar? It is based on El Amor Patrio of Dr. Jose Rizal. That is written on 1882. Okay po. Why am I giving emphasis to this? Because when you search that on the internet, you will not read Del Pilar's writing. You will not be able to find it. What you're gonna see is Pag-ibig sa Tinubuang Bayan by Agapito Bagong Bayan. Sino po yan? It is Andres Bonifacio. So, Pag-ibig sa Tinubuang Bayan is a poem. It is, if I'm not mistaken, 27 or 28 paragraph poem that talks about his love of our country. So, Pag-ibig sa Tinubuang Bayan is what is written by Bonifacio on 1896. Pag-ibig sa Tinubuang Lupa is Del Pilar's writing. So, wala po sanang malilito dito. Next naman po, we have last two regimes or periods before we end this video lecture. So, we have American regime. I'm just gonna read first what is written. So, sabi po dito, even though the Filipinos were influenced to use English in writing, Spanish and Tagalog were still widely used. The topics discussed on their writings were mostly attempts to arouse love for one's native tongue. So, what we are saying here in the American regime is that we were able to be freed from the Spaniards because the Americans bought our liberty from them. So, binili tayo ng Americans from the Spaniards through the Treaty of Paris. So, sabi dyan, they influenced the Filipino writers to use English in writing. And how did they do that? They started funding or constructing public schools. So, they started the system of public schools in the Philippines. So, when they offered free classes, of course, the Filipinos took or got themselves into enrolling to the different schools, and then they started learning the English language. That's why even though Spanish and Tagalog were still widely used during the start of the American regime, the Filipinos slowly shifted into using English in their literary pieces. Sabi din dyan, as they are slowly shifting, they tried to attempt to arouse the love for one's native tongue or one's native language through the use of their literary pieces. However, syempre, there are the youth na nakakapasok po ng mga public school, so they were able to really learn the language which is English. That's why nag-shift talaga into English writing yung atin pong literature during this time. Okay po. Next naman po and last is the Japanese regime. So, Japanese regime, what happened during this time is the Philippine literature in English. So, we were just talking about the shift in the use of Spanish and Tagalog language into English. And then this time, on the Japanese regime, they halted it. What do we mean by halt? They paused or they stopped the use of English in Philippine literature, which was good. Why? Because the Filipino writers started writing again using Tagalog. So they were able to reclaim our language in terms of literature. So they are using Tagalog again when they are writing a literature. And that is why Filipino poetry was able to flourish. What do we mean by flourish? It developed heavily. And there are three specific Filipino poetry forms that emerged during the Japanese regime. And these are haiku, we also have tanaga, and of course, karaniwang anyo. So what are these three and what are their differences? All of these are Filipino poetry, and in haiku, we have a specific format which is 575. Meaning, haiku is a poem that has only one specific paragraph and has only 3 lines inside it. And what are those lines? In each line, meron lang po siyang 5, 7, and 5 syllables each. Sabi po dito, in total, there are only 17 syllables in this poetry or in this poem. Next naman po natin, in Tanaga, we have 7777 format. So, in this form of poetry, meron po tayong in total 28 syllables. And there are exactly 4 lines in this type of Filipino poetry. Next natin is karaniwang anyo. Contrary to the first two, which is heavily dependent on the format, in this type of Filipino poetry, we are not requiring any restriction. Ibig sabihin po, wala pong required na meter, there is no required paragraph, there is no required number of lines. Nothing. Wala po siyang rhyming, hindi po required na maglagay po ng kahit na ano. Ang importante po magsulat kaya ng magsulat. That is what we call karaniwang anyo. And for the other term, for karaniwang anyo, we have malayang taludturan. Bakit po? Because we are free to write anything that we want, how long we want it to be, or how short we also want it to be. So, yun po yung karaniwang anyo. Before we end, I have here an example of a haiku and a tanaga. So first, let us start with haiku. So the title is, Isang hapon, bakit ang suot, may dugot gusot-gusot, sino ang lagot? Okay po. So that is an example of a haiku. If we're gonna read it and we're gonna count the syllables per line, ito po yung mga cut niyan. So bakit, 2 syllables, ang 1 syllable, suot, 2 syllables again. That totals to 5 syllables. Next line po natin, may, 1 syllable, dugot, 2 syllables, gusot, 2 syllables, and then gusot again, 2 syllables again. 7 in total. And lastly po, sino, 2 syllables, ang, 1 syllable, lagot, 2 syllables. And that totals to 5. In total, we only have 17 syllables. That is how short haiku is. Okay po. For the interpretation, I think this is better discussed in person o kaya po or in a live setting. So I'm not gonna reveal what is the interpretation. So I am giving you the liberty to interpret it however you want to interpret it. So we're gonna focus only on the format. Next naman po, we have Tanaga. So on this poem, it is entitled Pag-ibig. Parang talang marikit, may taglay na pang-akit. Ang hangad niyang makamit, wag sanang ipagkait. So this is an example of a tanaga. And if you're gonna count the syllables again, it will be equal to 28 syllables because each line have 7 lines. Okay po. Do you have any question? If you have any question, please do not hesitate to ask it on our GC. Okay, so the next part is Rebirth of Freedom. You may go to my next part, or you may go to the video that explains the next part of this lesson. So in part 2 of the Philippine Literary History, we're gonna start with the Rebirth of Freedom up until the post-EDSA 1 revolution. So that is all. Goodbye.